the matter of the people of the state of California versus Orenthal James Simpson, case number BA096.
And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
Sweet, and we are recording. Hello, Taylor. How are you doing?
Good. How are you? I'm seeing you from a different angle. You really look like you're wearing horns.
It looks cool, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
See? Hey.
Love it.
Yeah. It's gonna be an interesting couple of weeks, I think, because it is completely iced over here in Austin. I woke up and my little cowboy pool was rock solid ice.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I went out there with a hatch and started chopping the ice on the top layer so that hopefully it doesn't freeze all the way down, because if it freezes all the way down, then it's gonna blow out all the filter motors and stuff like that. So
Do you have like a thing? When I lived in Illinois as a child, we had like a above ground pool, and you put like a big like blow up pillow in the middle of it, and that like that will take the pressure off of like the stuff.
I never heard of that. I do think that after we finish recording, I'm going to go out there and put a bunch of stuff like towels and stuff around the hoses just to make sure that they don't get frozen. But it is cold. It's like, what is it? It was like 19 degrees this morning. So yeah, just waiting for the moment when our power grid goes out. So TBD.
Yep, that'll happen. Well, there's cowboypools.com that can help you. But I was just had a wonderful weekend with a bunch of I went to that retreat and it was really nice, but a lot of the women were from the Midwest and now they're all getting home and texting pictures, and in Kansas City it feels like negative 21.
I was watching the Kansas City, the Chiefs and the Dolphins game, and
oh my God.
Looking at head coach of the Chiefs, Andy Reid's mustache at the end of the game was incredible.
Oh my God.
There's all these videos of people taking like bottles of water out of the refrigerators of the stadium, and then they just hold it up and it just freezes like in real time in front of them.
Oh my God. It's like 45 degrees here and I am freezing my butt off. So
yeah.
Well, good luck.
So yeah, that's where we are. We can go ahead and hop right into it. I think today is your turn to go first, right?
Thought it was you, but I could be wrong. No, it's me. No, it's you, because you did Schumacher, and then I did males.
Okay, cool. Well, oh yeah, I need to introduce us. So this is Doomed to Fail. I'm Farz, joined here by Taylor. We're going to cover some topics that are fun, sometimes gory, sometimes interesting. No, always interesting.
Always interesting.
Always interesting.
Good job.
Yes, thank you for correcting me. And today, per usual, I picked kind of like an odd, nebulous, not totally obvious topic. Today, I want to instill in our listeners, I wrote down I want to instill in our readers. Obviously, it was multitasking when I drafted that part of the outline. I want to instill in our listeners an unhealthy fear of one of the prettiest and fluffiest things in the world. Can you guess what it could be?
Is it a puppy? You love puppies.
I do love puppies. No, it is clouds.
Ooh, great.
Yes. So I'm going to discuss some cloud science for those who are looking for an exciting and fun afternoon, and then discuss a few high-profile and terrifying cases of when clouds were our worst enemies and not our best friends, as we are prone to think.
Oh my God, I can't wait. I'm really excited. I'm going on a plane tomorrow also, so I hope that this will scare me.
This is horrible timing for this conversation.
Everything's fine. Go ahead. Tell me about clouds. I can't wait.
Let's get into it. So there are 10 types of clouds that are broken up into 3 broad categories. And most of how they're broken up is dependent on how high they are in the sky, essentially. So super high clouds are generally not dense looking, and they're kind of wispy. Think of like Microsoft 95 background. That's one category, super high. So tall, wispy, not really a threat, don't really do anything. Then you have mid-level clouds, and these are basically medium density. They're usually a little bit darker towards the center, and they have more like an amorphous kind of shape to them. Again, there's subcategories of all of these, but just broadly speaking, that's kind of mid-level is another version. Then you have the oh shit clouds, which are considered the low-level clouds, and those are the ones where all the horrible things end up happening inside of and happen to us down on Earth.
Oh my God.
The scariest of these types of clouds is what's called the cumulonimbus cloud. And
Those are the two things that I thought I knew, cumulus and nimbus. But I
there you
guess,
go. There
yeah.
you go. So I'm gonna probably abbreviate this to CB because saying cumulonimbus is kind of hard for me. My tongue doesn't really work that way. But they're also known as CB clouds, so I'm gonna refer to them as CBs. So these are the terrifying ones. So this is the one that you would associate with thunderstorms, lightning, hail, tornadoes, and a phenomenon I'd actually never heard before called a thunder snow,
Oh,
which
you know what?
is
I have heard of that because they had them when I was in New York. And I was like,
uh,
what the fuck is a thunder snow? I remember, I feel like was like one of the first things I ever tweeted was like, what the fuck is a thunder snow? Because it was like thunderstorming and snowing and terrifying. Yeah.
and then there's lightning. It's like
Yes.
crazy. Like
Oh my
so
God.
all of those are things that happen within CB clouds, like this cloud type. And so they are huge by nature. So these can generally vary somewhere between 700, as high up as 700 feet from the ground, all the way up to about 69, 70,000 feet up in the air.
Okay.
And they can be tens of miles wide. So 40 miles, 50 miles, somewhere around there. So these things are huge. And when they roll over your city, you should be inside for most of it. I read a ton of stuff on how these are formed, and I honestly don't understand any of it. It's just a lot of topics around pressures and water vapors and updrafts and downdrafts and air circulations, all this different kind
Uh-huh.
of stuff that it's just like I'm not a meteorologist. I'm not a scientist. I don't know how it works. I don't get it. So I'm just gonna focus mostly on why they're horrific through the explanation of examples of stories of what's happened to people when they've been inside these things.
I love it.
So there is two concepts I'm going to touch on that happen within CB clouds. One is called cloud suck, which isn't good. It kind of sucks. Zinger, got it in.
Wow.
So a cloud suck is when the air inside of a cloud rises to the top due to the turbulence inside that cloud, due to just, again, barometric pressure, like a whole host of scientific
Hmm.
things that I don't totally understand. And for a human to be inside a cloud suck is really, really bad, given the fact that the concept of gravity doesn't really apply to you when you're inside of one of these things.
Hmm.
And add to the fact that while you're inside one of these things, you are subject to lightning, hail, torrential rain, freezing temperatures, all the rest of it. But
Hmm.
you might be asking yourself, Farz, why would a human ever be stuck in something that's 30 to 50,000 feet high in the air, like one of these CB clouds? That's probably what you're asking yourself.
Superman, maybe. This is
Superman could have taken you up
I have
there.
an argument against flying as a superpower because it's cold as shit and it sounds awful. But
Yeah, but I don't think you get cold if you're Superman. Does Superman get cold?
um, I don't know.
But then does he get hot? Because then you'd have to walk around wearing layers. Otherwise, people are like, oh, there's one human in New York City who can walk around
Right.
without.
He has
The,
to act like one of us.
right.
I don't know. It's an airplane, Farz. Is it an airplane?
No. So, sort of. Yes, kind of, almost. You're almost there. So, one way that you could end up in this situation is if your name is Colonel William Rankin
Hmm.
and you are flying a fighter jet while trying to go over a CB cloud. So,
Got it.
we're going to talk about his story as it relates to the concept of cloud suck. So, on July 26, 1959, Rankin was flying his F-8 fighter jet, which I know I'm talking about 1959, but I actually read up on these things, and this is not like some weird, Wright brothers type plane. It looks like a modern fighter jet. It is a jet
Hmm.
plane. It's a little stubbier looking than a modern fighter jet, but this thing still has a max speed of 1,100 miles per hour and a surface ceiling of 59,000 feet. So like again, no slouch. I know it's old, but it's like it looks like a modern fighter plane essentially.
Hmm.
And what Rankin was about to do actually isn't stupid as I go through and describe it. You just had really, really bad luck. So he was flying from South Weymouth, Massachusetts to Beaufort, South Carolina, which is about 1,000 miles away, which he could have done within an hour to 2 hours. Not that big of a deal.
Hmm.
Fairly rudimentary flight. During his flight, and directly in his way was one of these CB clouds that was around 47,000 feet high. We know this because, spoiler alert, Rankin is going to survive this experience, and he will have a picture perfect memory of all of its instrument readings, except oddly enough, his oil pressure reading for some reason. But whatever, we'll get over that. He knows for a fact that at 47,000 feet is when he realized things were going awry. So he was probably higher than 47,000 feet because the plane was climbing. So
Mm-hmm.
what he was doing was trying to go over the cloud. He didn't want to go through it because everybody knew at that point that going through these things was horribly, horribly dangerous. His idea was, I'll just go over it. He was at 47,000 feet, shouldn't have been a problem because his service ceiling was 59,000 feet.
Mm-hmm.
So he starts going over the cloud when all of a sudden his engine sputters out. And he's
Mm-hmm.
like, oh shit, what am I going to do now? Ordinarily, this wouldn't be a problem because these planes are made to glide. Like, not like a glider would, but you can still glide down. You don't have to, like, think you're fucked when you're 47,000 feet. The reason why he kind of was fucked was because his fire engine warning sound came on, and he was like, oh, this thing is on fire and probably about to get consumed by fire. And so he did the
Mm-hmm.
only thing he really could do, which was he reached down and pulled his ejection seat and went out the top of this thing at 47,000 feet high, directly over a CB cloud.
Mm-hmm.
He was not wearing a pressurized suit, and he was traveling at around 630 miles per hour when he ejected.
Oh my God.
He wrote a book after this experience called The Man Who Rode the Thunder, and I read
Ooh.
through it and read his description of what this experience was like. He described it as hitting a wall at 630 miles per hour because that's basically what he was
Whoa.
doing. And on top of that, he talks about the cold outside. So what he was saying was that inside
I
his
said it's cold.
super cold. He went
Yeah.
from he went from 75 degrees inside the cabin to negative 70 degrees outside. Plus
Oh
the
my God.
tremendous wind rushing past him, all that stuff. He described the cold as almost feeling like burning. Like it kind of
Yeah, yeah,
it makes me think of dry ice. Like if you've ever picked up dry ice, which I did
yeah,
as a
yeah, yeah.
child because I don't know
Everyone
what I
did.
thought. Yeah. But the one good thing was that it was so blisteringly cold and he was going so fast that his body basically went numb from the cold. Like he basically felt like he was burning off all of his nerve endings. And so he went numb for the most part. As he starts descending into the cloud, he realized that he wasn't wearing his oxygen mask and was aware that he would lose consciousness pretty soon, which meant that his parachute on his ejection seat is set to deploy at 10,000 feet. That's the time that it was supposed to happen. But he was like,
Uh-huh.
well, what if something goes wrong? I'm going to be blacked out if I don't get my oxygen mask on. So he talks about, like, this is like a page and a half of the book about how much energy and force it took for him to be able to just move his hands close enough to his face to, like, get this thing strapped on because he was just
Oh.
being spun in all different directions. But he's finally able to do it. And it was at that point that he starts noticing that there's blood pouring all around his face. So his eyes, nose, and ears were all bleeding, and they were freezing. All the blood was freezing on his face immediately, and all this was due to the explosive decompression. So because he wasn't wearing a pressure suit, his eyes almost blew out of his skull from the
Oh my
pressure. It's
God.
like, yeah, this is like the Arnold Schwarzenegger
Oh, I love that.
scene
In Total
in
Recall.
Total Recall. Yeah,
Yeah.
so he continues to free fall and starts doing some rough calculations on when his chute should automatically open. In his writing, he bounces back and forth between confidence in his training and his equipment and then abject fear that he should just open the chute manually. His problem was that his oxygen tank really only had about 5 to 6 minutes worth of oxygen in it. So
Mm-hmm.
if he opens the chute too soon, then he'll be oxygen deprived and probably brain dead by the time he lands if he doesn't die of freezing cold before then, anyways.
Oh my God.
So he recalls eventually searching for the ring to pull the chute open manually, and then right as he was about to, the chute opened on its own, and that was a relief. He was like, "Great, so I'm at 10,000 feet. Everything's fine. I should be going in for landing here soon." He was not at 10,000 feet.
What?
Yeah. So the release mechanism for the parachute is not based on height. The chute doesn't understand how high you are. It's based on barometric pressures. So the lower you are, the higher the pressure is because you're closer you're getting to atmospheric pressure. And so
Mm-hmm.
that triggers a mechanism when the chute to open. But in a CV cloud, you can't really trust the pressure readings because 10,000 feet in one of these clouds could be 20, 30, 50,000 feet barometric pressure that it would be on the ground essentially.
Sure.
So That's what happened to this guy. So we don't know how high he was when the chute actually opened. We just know that he definitely was not landing anytime soon. He was in the middle of the cloud, in the middle of the worst weather inside the cloud. So he was surrounded by thunderstorms and lightning. And what he would talk about was even when his eyes
What?
were closed, he could literally see lightning directly in front of him. And he said it was a lot different than what you see like on the ground. So on the ground, you see lightning. It's just like little shards that are going down to the earth. In this case, he was talking about how it looked like he's like 2 to 4 foot long blue sheets directly in front of him that would sometimes wrap all the way around him instead of shooting all the way down to the ground. So I went on like a weird little side quest about how this could happen and you not automatically die. And apparently, the reason you die when you get hit by lightning on the ground is because the lightning goes through you because it's trying to hit the ground. You're the conduit to the ground for it.
Uh-huh.
But apparently, if you're in the air, lightning doesn't hurt you. It like wraps around you. Like it just goes around you and it's not a big deal. It's really strange. Like I never knew that. But apparently that's like why when planes get struck by lightning, nothing happens because the lightning just goes around them because they doesn't have a reason to go through it. Kind
Wow.
of weird, right?
Yeah.
So he described the feeling of the thunder and what that was doing to him. And this one I really resonated with. It reminded me of the one and only time I went to a shooting range and I was in the basement of this building inside like an entirely cement lined building. And it's funny because when you're there and you hear the gunshots going off, the thing that you freaks you out is not the sound of the gunshot. It's the fact that it just shakes your insides. Like it just quakes
Yeah.
everything inside of you. And you're like, holy shit. And that's what he was describing. He was like, I didn't hear the thunder. I felt it. It was like inside my bones. It was inside my body, which is absolutely terrifying to think of. In the book, he mentioned that in the middle of all this, he hadn't even thought to look at his watch. But by the time he did, he realized it had been 20 minutes since he ejected. Again, he had a picturesque memory of every one of his instrument readings. He ejected at around 6 p.m. local time. It was 6:20, and he was like, "I'm still not on the ground. It's been 20 minutes. I should have been on the ground
Oh
by
my
now."
God. What time of year was it? Like was it light out or was it dark?
It would have been so. It should have been light out, but he was inside the middle of it, which was dark.
Right. Right.
Yeah,
Okay. Okay. But there's like technically if it got out of the cloud, it would be light.
yeah, it would have been. It would have
Okay.
been. Yeah, he mentioned that when he was inside of it, he was like the only like thing was like with the lightning hit. The only good part about the lightning hitting was actually him being able to know like his orientation because
Oh
it
my
was just pitch black inside.
God.
Absolutely
It's
terrifying.
so scary.
Yeah. So I did some rough math, and terminal velocity for most humans is around 120 miles per hour. So by all accounts, between ejecting at 47,000 feet and accounting for, let's say, a descent from 10,000 feet with a parachute, he should have been on the ground within 10 minutes. So it should have been 10 minutes from ejection to being on the ground. He was at 20 minutes, and he
Oh
was
my God.
just about to get the roller coaster of all this started. 20 more minutes will have passed of him being sucked up and down inside this cloud. Again, he's being pushed back up. He's not actually descending. And one of the things that he mentioned was it was also in the middle of like all this torrential rain. He literally thought to himself, I'm going to drown." Like
Oh
he
my God.
when he plays out this scenario in his mind, he was like, "This is gonna be incredible. I'm gonna land probably somewhere on a tree, dead. And when
Right.
they do my autopsy, they're gonna find that my lungs are full of water." And I'm like, "How on earth is this even possible? Like, how could this
For
have
real.
possibly happened?" It was
Oh
it was
my
interesting
God.
that he just played all this stuff out. But
Yeah.
about around 6:40 or so, so 40 minutes from ejection until he actually looks down and sees green underneath. To your point, it was daytime out, so you can actually see what was going
Got
on
it.
underneath him. And so
That
that's
feels
when he kind
good.
of yeah, that's when he came out of the clear covering and he realized that he was going to be on land, which he was then found and immediately rescued. He would become the first person in human history to have gone through a fall of a CB cloud and survived. There's actually only
Wow.
two in history. The other one happened in 2007. There's a woman named Iwa Wisniewska, and she would have the exact same experience where she was a paraglider and got trapped in the updraft of one of these clouds. She would end up going about 37 miles from her original point. That's how far this thing dragged her. And her experience was also harrowing, although she didn't write a book about it. And so there was like not a ton of stuff that I could research about her case. And so that's why I went with Rankin's story. So that is a hellish, nightmarish situation that was totally not of his own creating, and wouldn't wish on anybody. But That's not the only one. The other one I want to talk about, the other situation here that has to do with clouds, has to do with what's called a microburst or a downburst, depending on your
Okay.
source. Do you know what this is?
Nope.
Okay.
Scared though. Not scared, but okay.
So the, I remember this story. So I'm going to talk about this. Okay, let me actually, I'm actually get into it. So basically, a microburst is just assume you're in like a cloud, and then all of a sudden, from above you, there's this huge rush of air that just goes straight to the ground and then dissipates once it hits ground, crazy fast, like 150 miles per hour wind that just comes straight down,
Okay.
completely out of nowhere. And again, barometric pressure, whatever. There's a whole host of reasons why this happens. The problem with these is that it can happen almost instantly and without notice or without warning. So think about a plane flying through the air through one of these clouds. In most cases, it's really not a big deal because yes, it hits the plane will jostle, will experience turbulence, and it'll just keep on going. The
Uh-huh.
problem is if you are taking off or landing, you might be so close to the ground that when you get pushed down, you could hit the ground, or when the microburst hits the ground and then shoots back up, then
Hmm.
that turbulence can cause you to crash. So you really don't want to be stuck in one of these things. And now science has gotten pretty good at detecting the atmospheric situations and conditions where these could occur. And so we're
Uh-huh.
getting a lot better with this stuff now. But I'm going to go through a discussion of a time when we weren't really good at this. It also reminded me, Taylor, of this one flight. I was flying from Miami back home to Dallas, and we were taking off in the middle of a thunderstorm.
Oh my
And I
God.
could feel I've never been more scared in my entire life. I was like, this was
Yeah.
the worst idea possible. Like, I was like, dude, I will pay you fucking 10 times whatever this airfare is to just
To
land the
stop.
thing. Like, we will
Yeah.
all pay you. Everyone on the plane was screaming, they were crying. Like,
Oh my God.
it was an absolute nightmare. Like, I've never really like prayed for my life before, and I started praying. It was like, I'm literally gonna die. Like, this is gonna be the end of us. And it made me think of this situation because I learned about a case where that happened upon approach, and it ended in horrible, horrible tragedy, which we're going to discuss here in a moment. So, forever ago, I learned about this one flight that was coming into DFW. For some reason, Dallas Fort Worth Airport has a ton of accidents. Like, I don't know.
It's because the weather in Dallas is fucking crazy. I was there. Remember when got stuck there
Hmm?
because there was like all of a sudden there was a tornado, and then all of a sudden there was like a thing, and then my boss and my coworker, their flights left, and I was like, I'm bummed that my flight's canceled, but also I don't want to leave in this. Like I don't know.
Yeah.
But they
Yeah,
leave in it all the time. It's very, I mean, the weather's just fucking crazy in Dallas. There's hail like out of nowhere.
it's that. And I also think it has something to do with the fact that it's like wide open plain land.
Hmm.
Like there's not anything that really breaks when you drive up to DFW airport, like you're not around buildings at all. Like
Yeah.
Dallas proper is like 20, 30 miles away from DFW airport. And so if winds are going to pick up, they can pick up momentum a ton over there. And so I don't know. It's just like a lot of stories I was reading about this stuff was like, and then the plane crashed in Dallas, and then the plane crashed on approach from Dallas, and
It's
they're going to
also
take off from Dallas.
a
Like,
lot of, it's a high number of planes going in and out of Dallas. So
that's true. It's
yeah,
actually the central hub for American Airlines, and
yeah,
that's the biggest airline in the world. So like
yeah,
it kind of all makes sense, but
yeah.
still, it is terrifying. And it made me think of it because I used to fly from LA to Dallas all the time, and this one story came up, and it was like, oh, this is a doomsday worst case scenario. So let's go into it. This was actually not American Airlines. This was a Delta flight. It was Delta Flight 191, and this was an accident that happened on August 2nd, 1985. So this plane was carrying about 152 people plus 11 crew. That included a captain, first officer, and a flight engineer, and they were all super, super experienced. That's one thing about this story that's like horrific is like nobody did anything wrong. Everything
Yeah.
went perfectly fine, and everybody fucking died. Worst case. So this flight was it took off out of Fort Lauderdale, and it was scheduled to fly into DFW for a layover before it was going to continue on its way to LAX airport. And they reached around New Orleans when they noticed a very large storm cell directly in front of them. They appropriately asked air traffic to route them around the storm. But ultimately, as they got closer to DFW, they were basically forced to go into the storm cell to be able to get to approach position for DFW.
Uh-huh.
At around 6:04 p.m., it's interesting because the other one was at 6 p.m., the Rankin story. Weird. It all happened at 6. So, anyways, at around 6:04 p.m., they were about 1,000 feet above the runway on approach, and basically you could hear the captain and the first officer on the voice recorder struggling to keep the plane afloat.
Hmm.
They don't offer much detail other than a frenetic request to like, hey, spool the engines up, point the nose up, like it's stuff like that. Like you don't really know what's going on. Like it doesn't give you any details. All you know is that like for whatever
Hmm.
reason they're doing a smooth approach, and all of a sudden they're freaking out and trying to increase throttle.
Oh my
What
God.
what air traffic control saw from the tower was the plane overshot the runway, slammed
Hmm.
into the ground, and then kept going forward. It was in one piece, and it kept going forward towards the highway that's off the side of DFW Airport,
Hmm.
and it would eventually break up on the highway as it was hitting signs and cars. It would eventually kill one guy's 28-year-old named William Mayberry, who was in his car when the left engine landed on him.
Oh my God, what a fucking way to go.
What a nightmare. So out of the 163 people that were on board, 137 of them were killed, and then the one guy William was killed on the ground. So
I'm looking at
138.
I'm looking at the diagram where you can talk about you should have sat in the back in this one.
So here's the thing: I've looked at a ton of these diagrams. There actually is no secret because in
I
some,
know.
it depends on what the accident is. Like
I
what
mean, you could
actually
never
goes
have guessed
wrong.
that it would have been a crash on the freeway, that was like
Yeah,
like
like how do you
yeah.
plan for that?
It was
So,
also a huge plane and there was a smoking section. That's fun.
are you jealous?
Yeah, I think I would enjoy flying a lot more if I could smoke. Also, my life, I would enjoy a lot more if I could smoke and it wouldn't kill me. So get on
I
that
know,
science.
the
Yeah.
dream. Get on it. So the NTSB would investigate, and like that's the thing. Like realistically, nobody did anything wrong. What happened
Wow.
was, upon approach, there was a microburst that showed up out of nowhere. It hit the plane, smashed to the ground, and caused enough turbulence where they couldn't sustain lift anymore, and it just crashed to the ground. Like, it was literally it. Like there was no reason for this to happen
Wow.
except happenstance, and that's why these things are so dangerous. Now, like I said, they do have Doppler sonar on planes, so they have like a better idea of when a microburst could potentially hit. But like,
Hmm.
still, that's not great. Like, it's not like a rock solid science on that. The good thing to know is that there's actually only been two fatal plane crashes caused by microbursts when the planes were at cruising altitude. All the other crashes were on approach or landing. So if you can get through the takeoff and landing, you're good. Like once the plane's in the air, you're usually good.
I know. I know. Oh my
Unless you're
God.
that MH flight, whatever that Malaysian Airlines flight, which also I think went through a CB cloud and was torn to pieces. I forgot what the story was with that one. Do you recall?
Wait, the big Malaysia airline flight?
Yeah,
They don't know what happened.
MH370.
Yeah. Like I watched the documentary and it doesn't seem like anyone knows what happened.
Murder suicide by the pilot,
There's also like potentially
hypoxia.
I feel like they might have gotten shot down by accident.
Yeah, yeah, that could be it
Y
too.
you know.
So yeah, okay. I guess that was one of the, you know what, I'm remembering like an old memory of when this first happened, and they were like, oh, it probably went through a CD cloud and got torn to pieces and disintegrated. And somebody, there was like memes happening of like, okay, new fear unlocked, a plane can just disintegrate in the middle of the air. It's like, yep.
Yeah, I mean that can happen. Well,
So
great.
yeah, that's my story.
That's really
Fun.
scary. Yeah, we just bought tickets. We're gonna go to Japan for 2 weeks in April.
No way. That's so
Yeah.
cool.
I'm really excited, but I'm scared because it's a 10-hour flight. I'm gonna have to get like some very serious knockout juice drugs and just wake up in Japan.
That'll be so much fun. Everybody I know who's been to Japan has said that it's probably the best place I've ever visited.
I'm really excited. It's just we've always wanted to do it, so we're gonna do it. Just me and Juan.
Whoa! And the kids are what, going to your mom?
His parents are gonna come and they're gonna take them to Yosemite for a week because it's spring break, and then hang out with them for a week. So super
Nice,
lucky. Yeah.
nice, very
Ugh.
cool.
Yeah, cool. If I survive my flight tomorrow.
Wait, that's you're going to the Bay Area tomorrow?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, you'll be fine. You'll be
Okay.
fine.
Yeah.
When does anything bad happen landing in the Bay Area except that Asiana
Tomorrow.
flight?
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see.
Um, sweet.
But
Well,
that's crazy. That was super fun. I can't I can't believe that that William Rankin did. I saw he died in 2009. Good for him.
yeah, he lived a really good long life.
Yeah,
Um, his book is pretty fun. It's worth reading. The Man That Rode the
it seems
Thunder.
fun. Yeah.
Yeah, he is so much better at describing the experience than I am. And so yeah, if you can find it. So like a big chunk of it is for free. You can find it for free on Amazon.
Hmm.
Like 20, 30 pages of the entire experience from when he ejected until when he hit the ground. So like that's probably the best part anyways. So yeah, worth a search, worth a read.
Cool.
Do we have any listener mail that we want to call out?
Nope. Listen,
No?
no, but you always can email us, doomedtofellpod@gmail.com.
Find us
Find
on the
us on social.
socials.
Tell your
If
friends
you
so we can get more listeners and get advertisers and
get
do this
famous.
more. Yeah, please.
And if you have an unhealthy fear of clouds, write to us and let us know. Are
Yeah,
you scared of clouds?
I don't 100% want your bad turbulence stories, but you can send them. Farz can read them.
Yes, I will gladly read it. Sweet.
Cool.
We'll go ahead and cut things off,
Thanks,
Taylor.
Farz. That was scary.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. And I'll see you in a little bit.
Cool.